everyone. This will be episode 19 of the city we've been building, Spudcastle. As you can see, what you're looking at now is kind of what I've started with the Maritime Museum. I'm not going to do the time lapse this week, partly for the sake of my sanity and recording it and editing it, and things being kind of different for the last couple of weeks has been, throwing things off that way. So for the sake of, and another thing that's popped up, what I'm calling the PO apocalypse. There's been an update to the procedural objects mod, which it's breaking a lot of saves out there and stuff. So I decided, rather than carry on building, I'd stop and just do a more talky episode kind of thing. As you can see, I've made a start on this Maritime Museum. I will in a second jump forward to the save where I'm up to. But as I say, I've decided to just kind of down tools for a day or two, just to let the dust settle and see if I'm alright. At the minute I think we're okay, and we're unaffected, but there may also be an update coming out in a day or two anyway. But while I'm in this save, what I can do is show you one of the hacky things I'm gonna attempt in this episode. You may or may not be familiar with the monuments in this game. This actually started as a joke. What I'm planning to drop in, and hopefully if I can hide it, is this humongous monstrosity. If I can find somewhere where it will drop in. Come on, yeah, there we go. There's a bit of road we can drop in. But as you can see, extremely ugly, not fitting the theme or whatever. And what it actually does, it just spams tourists into the city basically. So what I'm planning to do is basically drop it down into the earth, and then we'll cover it up. And it kind of started as a joke on one of the forums, and I thought I'd give it a go. And actually I've got the save now, so I know it works. And actually the way I hide it, I'm quite happy. Why am I just raising it? I can just delete it now. But as you can see, it's huge and it's monstrous. Oh, and while we're at it, let me just say, this is getting moved. And the episode that went along with it, that's going to be deleted now. That was more to do with 2 years of being locked up with COVID and not having any release for stress, so if that seemed a bit off colour or maybe out of character, combine 2 years of not being able to go out and have a pint with the lads and what have you, with Brexit and Partygate, and mother was back in the hospital twice last week, and then flipping Vladimir Putin doing what he did and what have you. Old Spudsy needed to blow off a bit of steam, so that was just me venting a bit out of not being able to vent through, not being able to go out for so flipping long. So that's gonna move, but it'll always be there if we need it. We can always call back on it. Right, and with that, I will jump ahead now to the save we're currently in, and what I'll also want to do in that is I want to discuss what we're doing over here, and some of the history and geography of the city, and other impacts that, you know, recent events have had that are gonna affect the city and stuff. So I shall be back in 2 seconds when I load the other save. Right, so we're back in the active save where I decided to stop when I seen about the PO apocalypse, as I'm calling it. And yeah, I'm just gonna hold fire on actually building stuff for the moment, and as you can see, I was plopping down stuff and it's very much a work in progress. These aren't going to be staying in this area. But yeah, first thing to say, yeah, managed to bury that big old space elevator that we were talking about. And yeah, we've got it towards the entrances from these car parks are where people are coming in and out, and we've got absolutely gazillions of tourists coming in and out. I've got a little bit of issue with cars dipping on this now, but yeah, we can ignore that for now. Haven't connected this metro station as yet. Now, before I talk further about this area, I want to zoom out and talk a little bit about the history of the area and the geography of the area, and a bit about the city and how it's developed and evolved and stuff, and then we'll get into this area, and then afterwards we'll have a little chat about future plans and where we're going to go from here. Now, in terms of history, I envisage this whole general area at one time would have been covered in rather dense forest, and the first people who settled in this area would have been hunter-gatherers. So the deep history of the city is so lost into time that we'll never know all of it. After the hunter-gatherers, who, you know, had little spots along the river where they would gather fish, and, you know, the dense forest which was rich in deer and wild boar and various other game, came the agricultural age, where, if I zoom out, you can kind of see how it was divided up still to this day in that age, in the layout of the farms and the fields and the hedgerows that's going on, and we're largely using those as a guide for our road system. We're letting those be the desire paths that have evolved over time, which have then become larger roads, which have then become trunk roads. So we're approaching it in that kind of manner. Now, one of the things I would say is, this city being where it is, one of the questions that was asked and has been asked, and we haven't really addressed, is where in the United Kingdom this city is. And I've always thought of it as being somewhere in the north of England, presumably on the west coast, and kind of thinking of it as a port similar to Liverpool, the city I'm from. But the more I've built, and if I take various things, it's actually becoming a little Liverpool. But before we get into that, we should actually say, yeah, let's go back to our history and keep going that way. We'll come to that as we've been going through history, because of where it is with its connection to the sea, and its geography and its little villages that sprouted up along the rivers and what have you. It's been of strategic importance down the years and has indeed been invaded several times. The Vikings have been, the Romans have been, the Normans have been, and each of those different cultures down the years has left a little bit of a mark in different ways. Now, not all of that remains. One of the things I'm thinking of is this being a Roman road that was later taken over by the Normans. If I come to the area we've got over here, one of the things I was putting in, we already had this bit of ruins. I decided we'd make it larger, and this was a much bigger abbey come monastery that in the Middle Ages was probably actually the centre of the administration and owned much of the land and controlled much of the agriculture that was going around this area, and indeed probably was the location of an earlier Roman fort that controlled this road. And when the Christians moved in and built their abbey, they built it across the road and started charging people a toll to go through this. Now the gate that was here is obviously long gone to history and stuff. And you know, this church, this cathedral was built on the money that was generated from this monastery and abbey that pre-existed it, and its destruction was probably as a result of Bloody Mary and her reign, and this was always a place of pilgrimage and stuff. So as this cathedral was being built, people who were coming as pilgrims were making donations and stuff. So this church, who still own this area, kept it preserved. So yeah, and then moving further into history, we start coming towards, you know, the period of history that relates to this, where we've got the history of the city as a port, where this is a maritime museum. Now, as I was saying, before we actually get into this bit of the history, as I was saying, as I'm building the city as it exists today, much of those bits of history are hidden and been overbuilt and what have you. But as I have been building this city, one of the things that, as I'm saying, is becoming apparent to me is it is a little Liverpool. I'm looking at this and I'm seeing little different bits of Liverpool, albeit mixed up, moved around, shuffled about, but yeah, I'm seeing it all over, and I've been trying to avoid making it a little Liverpool, but it's becoming that much of a little Liverpool, and I'm feeling like we should maybe embrace that rather than trying to fight against it. Particularly this area over here, the Pierhead. Now, those who are familiar with Liverpool will know that, yeah, the three graces in Liverpool are very old buildings, one of which is actually very similar to this, except it's a limestone or maybe sandstone, very ornate building, whereas that's much more of an industrial looking kind of thing, like a Lancashire cotton mill type thing or what have you. Now, by doing, by taking on the idea of embracing the idea that, okay, this is kind of, we didn't set out to be a little Liverpool, but it's kind of becoming a little Liverpool. That opens us up to using the history from Liverpool, and certainly the fact that the similarities with it being a large port and this being pretty much the economic driver that has fueled the city's growth over the centuries. While originally the majority of that port was up in this end of the city, this was the redevelopment that came post Second World War. But one of the things, if we do say that, we need to address is the fact that in the city's past, one of the key drivers of the city's economic growth and its wealth that turned it into the vast metropolis that it's going to become, is the fact that for 100 years it was involved with the slave trade, and was deeply involved, so much so that if we're going to say that, then we're probably looking at a figure of about 1.5 million slaves, 1.5 million people, slaves, were transported on ships that left from Liverpool and went to Africa and transported them to America. And the trade of goods that formed that circle was very much part of what created the wealth of this city. Which brings us to the Maritime Museum that I've built, very much in our city, in Liverpool. That does have that shameful past. Liverpool did indeed, was involved in the transportation of approximately 1.5 million slaves to America. Shameful part of my city's history. I have not words to express how much shame there is in for that my city is part of that. But I am proud of the fact that my city acknowledges it, and within my city there is a museum, a Maritime Museum, where one of the wings in the museum itself actually is dedicated to acknowledging the city's role in that, and it does at least recognise that it happened. It doesn't pretend, that these things didn't happen and stuff. So yeah, that is part of the city's history, and those exhibits will be in what I would think of as this building here, as the Maritime Museum. Moving into a more light note as well, it gives us an excuse to put some very nice ships on the waterfront. Now, I'm kind of learning stuff about the history of this city and stuff as we go along. As I say, it was never really intended to become a little Liverpool, but the little similarities are just here, there and everywhere. And moving forward the next time, one of the things I'm going to address, we'll finish off this area over here. Oh, and while we're over here, I've got to show you some of these new assets I've got. I know the asset creator is a subscriber, so he's likely to see this. And yeah, oh my man, some of these are absolutely fantastic. and yeah, nice little mosque here on the corner next to the cathedral. Quite like how that's tucks in on there. But yeah, some of these are great assets, and oops, jerky game as Biffa would say. It's just me being a bit quick with the mouse there. Absolutely fantastic assets, these. Oh, so yeah, nice one, love it. These are going to be going in all over the place. They were thrown down here at the minute, and as I say, we were mid-building here, so as you can see, stuff's down just as placeholders. But these are absolutely top draw. When I first seen that, I thought it was a cafe at first until I placed it down. I was like, oh yeah, it's a kind of an alternative clothes shop. Really like that. So yeah, oh, and same guy, this children's playground. Oh, very nice. I knew I had a better playground and a bigger, better playground, and yeah, space to run a little path through. Oh, yeah, Mr. Speed Tracks, very nice work, sir. Very nice work. I do like them, and we'll be integrating them a little bit better. I was literally in the middle of experimenting there, and I've saved the game and had gone for a little cup of coffee and seen about the PO apocalypse and decided to, yeah, we'll just hang up for the time being. Oh yeah, and we'll be renaming this building complex Spudcastle 2. To those who don't know, there was a recent development in Liverpool complex that they really put their brains together and come with the highly original name of Liverpool 1. I mean, is that not a bit cringe and cheesy? So yeah, we'll be calling that Spudcastle 2 as my little dig at that. So yeah, moving forward, let me just adjust the time of day. If we're going into night time there, if we're gonna have a little bit of fun and embracing the fact that, yeah, we're Liverpool but we're not Liverpool, I've kind of made our matchday stadium Liverpool, and over here somewhere, here we go. Now, I apologise to Everton fans and to Leicester fans for this, and you can see where I've just kind of stopped, but what I was thinking of doing. This is actually Leicester City's ground, but it's kind of similar-ish to Everton's ground. Everton, by the way, if you're not familiar with Liverpool and the Premier League and European football so much, Liverpool has two Premier League sides, Everton and Liverpool, and we do have a little giggle with each other time to time. So what I'm thinking of doing is, as Liverpool and Everton are in the city of Liverpool, they're just going to be across the park from each other here. Also, somewhere I'm thinking over in this area, we're going to do a little project where we're going to do a little, it's going to be huge. It's going to be a replacement stadium for Everton, which is something that's actually happening in my city at the moment, and it's kind of interesting because the project's kind of up in the wall at the minute, with the old stuff that's going on in the world with Vladimir Putin and stuff, because one of the investors who's putting in for the new stadium is a Russian oligarch, like, so the whole project is kind of up in the air. So yeah, I think we're going to do something with that. and we'll have a little fun with the Evertonians and have a little Mickey tea. Nothing too serious that, oh, these guys their season is going so bad. Also, however, we won 2-0 tonight over Arsenal. Right, so anyhow, all those things being said, what I shall do now is go and set some cinematics up, and in a day or so when the dust has settled with POs and I'm confident that things are okay, we'll crack on with actually building out this area properly. And yeah, the next episode we'll be building out that area and moving that stadium. We'll have a little bit of fun with the stadiums, and we shall address some of the other issues apart from showing our support for Ukraine, that the situation has arisen, and we'll have a little discussion about that. And in the meantime, I shall bid you all farewell, and I hope you all stay well and enjoy the cinematics, and I shall see you all next time.